The interest rates were on hold today. I think everybody around the country who's got a mortgage that's watching us, and I presume you both have, were very happy that he left the rates on 4.1%. But it's not going to do much to help people still struggling with the cost of living. I mean, Susie, when you take the car, drop the kids off to school and fill up with petrol, I note the petrol price has gone through the roof again.
Oh, petrol prices are way back over, $2, $2.20, and I've got a Ford Territory with a diesel engine, so it's just one of many bad things happening in my life right now. But I'm paying $200 a week more on my mortgage, and so is everybody else. And I think we are very pleased to see interest rates on hold at the moment. But there is a lot of trouble out there, and even if things aren't getting worse, they're certainly not getting any better.
Yeah, diesel petrol prices, I think, are up over $2.20 a litre. Your power bills, I'm not sure you'd be all that happy going down to the letterbox either, Susie, to pick out your electricity and your gas bill.
Oh, absolutely. And I just got I've got my rates and the renewal for my home and contents insurance, and that is something like $2,500. I think my partner calculated it was up 17%. So I don't know any pay rises unless you're the head of Qantas, perhaps, in the country that are, up 17% in 1 year alone.
Yeah, I got my water bill the other day and they made some argument that they're only going to lift it by 5%, but I don't get anything for that 5% lift. I'm not using any more water. It's just coming from the same source, the same reservoir, through the same pipe into the same house. So I don't understand why exactly the council would be raising it. Talking about Qantas, Alan Joyce, as we know, is retiring after some pretty tough weeks over the last few weeks. The Transport Workers Union head, Michael Caine. Now, the TWU have never been great fans of Qantas, I must say. They've had union arguments for years. Tony Sheldon, now a senator, also has been one of those who's been pretty critical of Qantas. But I think part of the problem with all of this is the amount of money that we're seeing the chief executive walk out the door with. That, Susie, is always very hard for anyone to explain properly to people in Australia struggling to pay their water bill.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but one thing that's really interesting is that we are seeing him walk out the door 2 months early, but still with the $24 million. And there's also questions about exactly, he sold a whole lot of Qantas shares. Was that before they knew about what was happening with the ACCC, with the phantom flights? I mean, it's very embarrassing for Qantas that Alan Joyce has been forced really to go early, because he was so linked to a company that has been now exposed, not just the flying kangaroo, but as the Herald Sun called him, the lying kangaroo. And, I'm sure that there were a lot of cushy lunches with politicians and business leaders over the next 2 months planned. And instead he's, slinking off with his tail between his legs, admittedly $25 million richer. I think people are just hoping that if he goes into retirement, he spends a lot of time catching cancelled and delayed Qantas flights.
You are evil. I'll get your views on these attacks on students in a moment. Katie now joins us from Darwin. We talk, of course, down here in the southern states, Katie, all the time about cost of living. I haven't been to Darwin for a while. My oldest daughter was there the other weekend, said it was fantastic, but she did find it expensive. I guess given your remoteness, things like the cost of fuel in particular would be higher even than what we're paying down south. Would that be right?
Yeah, you're spot on. It is always a little bit more expensive here in the Northern Territory than what it is in other states, particularly in other capital cities. And we're often complaining about the cost of petrol and the cost of living in different ways. But, then when you talk about the cost of airfares, as you just touched on as well, looking at Alan Joyce sort of stepping out the door, I've got to tell you that we cop the absolute rough end of the stick in regional Australia and in even more remote parts of Australia. Not only does it cost you an arm and a leg to fly anywhere else in Australia, even within the Northern Territory. I was talking to the CEO of Tourism Central Australia last week, who was telling me that it was more expensive for him to fly from Alice Springs to Darwin than what it was for his wife to travel overseas for work. And that's if you're lucky enough to actually get on a flight that's not leaving at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I understand that, you know, people are really upset with Qantas at the moment for a whole raft of reasons. But please, you know, when this new CEO comes in, they need to not only look at treating all Australians more fairly, but have a look at what you're doing to parts of regional Australia and how expensive you've made it for people to actually travel around our own country.
Give us an idea of, like, say you wanted to spend a weekend in Sydney or Melbourne, what would be the one-way economy fare on any of the airlines from Darwin back down south?
$700 if you're lucky. And then if you're looking at, you know, at travelling, say, with a whole family, so if you've got a family of 4, like I do, and I wanted to travel back to Queensland to see my family a little bit earlier this year, it cost us like $3,000 to get a family of 4 there for a weekend. Now, this is where I think that, you know, Qantas, they've got NT in the name. You know, they are the airline for all Australians. And we're in Darwin, we're in a capital city. So imagine what it's like if you live somewhere like Mount Isa, for example, where you can only get flights in and out of regional Queensland a couple of days of the week or a few days of the week, and then when you can actually get them, they're so expensive that it becomes just ridiculous for people to travel by air. But then when you look at the cost of petrol, it's insane as well. And these are the types of things I think that you need to look at when you talk about regional Australia. We want to live regionally. We actually want people to work in the regions. So we've got to try and bring down these costs so that it is more livable for people.
Yeah, and you don't have the option of driving. I mean, I've got a sister who operates a retail business in Geraldton in WA. I mean, yeah, she's only, you know, 4 hours from Perth, but you're a very long way from anywhere. You're not going to jump in the Toyota Hilux and head to Brisbane for the weekend. It's going to take you a month to get there.
That's exactly right. And, you know, Steve, even when you look at this from a real sort of family perspective, I've got kids that play a lot of sport. If you want to take away, you know, a Northern Territory swimming team, for example, for the Australian titles for swimming, imagine how much that costs families. And we, you know, like you said, even Geraldton, I've lived in WA as well. It is so expensive to travel. And I know that travel can be regarded as a real luxury. But when you live in different regional parts of Australia, you want to be able to see your family that live in other places too. And I just think that, you know, that Qantas and the other airlines need to be a little bit more fair also when you're looking at tourism to different parts of regional Australia as well.